Drivers for the cloud. In this section, we'll look at the various drivers, technological innovations that are making the movement to the cloud possible. As part of this particular section, we'll look at the various business drivers or business motivations for moving to the cloud. We'll also look at the various technological advances and innovations that have taken place in the last decade or so that are making cloud possible. And then we'll look at the customer drivers that are making organizations to move to the cloud. There are several factors that are driving businesses to adopt cloud computing. They are cost savings, investment, scalability, speed, flexibility, and big data. So let's look at each one of these items. Cost savings. Companies love to save money. The ability to pay for what's being used and not be compelled to pay for unused services is a big driving factor towards cloud computing. And not only are you paying only for what you want to use right now, there is also economy of scale. Large cloud providers are able to benefit from huge economies of scale, and so they're able to offer computing at lower costs. So cost saving is an important driver for businesses to move to the cloud. Investment. There are typically two kinds of expenses that an organization has to deal with. There is OpEx, which is the operating expense, and there is CapEx, which is capital expense. Companies find it easier to allocate resources for an operating expense rather than a capital expense. They would rather say, okay, let's start a project and let's figure out what the operating expense is going to be and then just pay on a monthly basis. It's much easier for them to do that rather than allocating a whole bunch of money as a capital expense, buy the hardware, buy the equipment necessary in order for them to launch a project. So from an investment perspective, it makes it easier to invest on new projects and initiatives. Scalability. Many organizations have websites and web applications that customers are using, but these websites, their usage demands may change over time. For example, for many organizations and companies, Christmas time or holiday season, they may have lots of customers coming in, and so they need more capability. They need more computing infrastructure. The reason they like cloud computing is because with cloud computing, they are able to scale their systems on demand whenever it is needed. So during the holiday seasons or during sales seasons, they can bring in computing resources and then they can take it down when it's not needed anymore. Scaling when you need and on demand also helps in cost savings. So scalability becomes a very important driver for businesses to move to cloud computing. Speed is another factor. The time taken to commission an IT resource with cloud computing is minutes. Within minutes, you can get a server or 10 or 20 servers rather than months or weeks that you have to plan in advance, order, provision, network. All those things take a lot of time, whereas with cloud computing, you're able to provision the servers within minutes. So that is a very important business driver for companies. Flexibility, which is really the idea that you can bring in servers on demand, you can bring in new environments on demand, whether it's a dev environment or a queue environment or increasing the production environment. This idea of flexibly bringing services is very important for businesses. This allows them to add new businesses, spin up new services, and respond to the ever-increasing customer needs. Big data is another factor. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last 4 or 5 years, you've heard the term big data. Especially big data analytics allows businesses to be better informed because they're able to take a lot more detailed data about customers, their behavior, web access, and all kinds of other related data, process it in order to get more meaningful information about their customers and about their products. Now, in order to do big data processing, you need lots of machines that can work coherently to give results. With cloud computing, it enables big data processing because now you can store big data in the cloud, you can launch machines on the fly, process them, and shut down machines once you're done, generate the reports, and then you're good to go. There are several technological innovations that have also made cloud computing possible today. Broadband networks and internet architecture, advances in data center technology, virtualization technology, web technology, multi-tenant technology, service technology, all these different technologies have made cloud computing possible today. Let's look at broadband networks and internet architecture. When internet was invented about three and a half decades ago, it was primarily for researchers and educational institutions to communicate with each other. But now, with broadband networks and routers and ISPs, we have entered a connected world. We have a person living in the United States communicating with services that would be in Japan, or a person in Japan communicating with services and individuals within the United States, all using this internet infrastructure, which is based upon TCP/IP, which is based upon a packet switching network. This idea of connecting the world is made possible because of the internet architecture, and that has become an enabling technology for cloud computing. There have also been advances in data center technology. There are standardization and modularization that is happening in data centers. There are data center standards. There is modular architecture in terms of bringing modules of compute devices with cooling equipments and power equipments all within a single module, and you can bring these modules into the data center. We'll talk more about this in the module on virtualization and data centers next week. The point I'm trying to make is standardization of data centers and equipments have played a very important role in cloud computing. There's also automation. When you have lots of servers within a data center, you need automation. You need tools for configuring, patching, and monitoring that have matured at this point. There is also a high availability within a data center. You have redundant telecommunication equipments. You have UPS. You have cabling that are redundant. So there's a lot of technological innovations that have taken place within a data center that have made cloud computing possible, including hardware. Now we have standardized rack mount. We have cheaper hardware, more powerful hardware. There's also virtualization, which is the ability to virtualize pretty much anything inside a data center. Well, virtualization is an important technology. Virtualization is pretty much virtualizing any resource within a data center, whether it's servers or storage or network, even power. Even servers can be turned on or turned off because there's a virtual view of a server within a data center. So these virtualization technologies are making it possible for us to create virtual networks, virtual storage, virtual servers, thus allowing us to do sharing within a data center. We'll talk more about virtualization and its importance within cloud computing in the next module. Web technology. Web technology has also become an important aspect or a driver for cloud computing. The basic web technology such as URL to identify a resource on the internet. You will see that when you start launching IT resources on the internet, you will be able to represent an IT resource using a URL. HTTP protocol, a primary communication protocol in the World Wide Web. You use the HTTP protocol to administer your web resources. You use the REST API model built on top of HTTP protocol to get information about a resource and configure a resource. Markup languages, HTML, HTML, XML, all these technologies are being utilized inside cloud computing. There's also data representation languages like JSON, XML, YAML that allow you to represent IT resources using some kind of a data representation format. There's also web application technology. The idea that we have a browser, which is the web client, and the fact that you can have an application server, which has a presentation layer, HTML application server, and the database layer. This kind of a multi-tiered, to be precise, a three-tiered architecture. This architectural mechanism has become almost a standard or a best practice when it comes to building applications. Such standardizations have also enabled in creation of web services such as the PaaS model or the SaaS model. Multi-tenant technology. It used to be that we used to build applications where you would have a single hardware with a single operating system with a single user that is going to be using the application. But then now we moved into a multi-tenant model where you can have a single application with a single database that is shared by multiple users rather than everybody having their own application and the database within their own hardware. This kind of a multi-tenant architecture, multi-tenant model that can be applied at the UI level or the business logic level, the data model level, the access control level has made cloud computing possible today. Service technology, the development of mature service-oriented architectures such as web services and REST service models has made cloud computing possible today. The field of service technology has become a keystone for as a service, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, communication as a service. This whole as a service model has come from service technology concept. And then there is the customer drivers. Customers want access to services from anywhere, anytime, and any device, and they are demanding it right now. That's how they want it. And so there's the customer driver or the customer push to access services online. In summary, there are business drivers that are motivating businesses to get online, to get into cloud computing. There are also technological drivers that we looked at, and there are also customer drivers that we looked at, which is the customer demanding for anywhere, anytime, any device model for cloud computing.